Cisco is proud to continue our partnership with the National Restaurant Association and to join the NRA in presenting today's SuperSession, The Future of Restaurants. Cisco understands the needs of our customers and has worked tirelessly to provide an array of technology solutions to help our customers succeed. Our goal is to provide more innovative ways for our customers to interact and engage with Cisco while helping them run a more profitable business. Our full range of technology solutions is all about increased productivity, flexibility, and convenience. As the food service industry continues to evolve and transform, Cisco's intense commitment to providing our customers with what they need to be successful is constant and at the heart of everything that we do. That being said, we're thrilled to hear from today's panel and gain insight to the drivers that are transforming our industry with technology. But before we bring them to the stage, I'd like to welcome Winsight CEO, Mike Wood.
Thanks, Mike. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
And thanks to Cisco. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to day 3. How you holding up? I'm Mike Wood, CEO of Winsight. Winsight's a B2B media and information company focused on the food and beverage industries. You may better know our brands, Restaurant Business, Technomic, and as of last November, this show. Yesterday, Dawn Sweeney hosted a panel of CEOs to talk about the future of dining. Today, we're going to pull on that thread a little bit more. This morning's session is the future of restaurants, the lens about technology. What tools will attract more diners? Which technologies will make your back of house smarter, more efficient? How do you determine what's right for your operations? We've gathered a group of those in the know. A journalist who tracks restaurant tech, one of the most innovative operators around, and 2 technologists deeply embedded in elevating the restaurant space. One thing all 4 of today's presenters have in common is that they're curious. They spend much of their time thinking about the future and the tools operators like you need to succeed. So with that, I'll get out of your way. Thank you again to Cisco for your support of this session, and thanks to all of you for joining us. To kick off the future of restaurants, I'm happy to introduce Executive Editor of Restaurant Business Magazine, Sarah Rushworth. Good luck.
All right, welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us today to talk about technology. So what you're going to see is some demos. You're going to hear from some experts in the restaurant tech field about what the future of the restaurant might look like. But before we start talking about the future, we first have to really understand where we are today. There we go. We already know that technology is a huge component in the modern restaurant business. Technology has the potential to be embedded pretty much across the entire restaurant operation. And as you can see from this tech ecosystem, from Tech Table, it's really everywhere. And there is a lot on there. And it's really not even everywhere that it could potentially be. There's a lot more out there than just this. Heck, there's about 250 POS systems operating today. And while about 14 or so dominate the market, there are more popping up constantly. There we go. So it's not really a big surprise that so many of today's challenges stem from the fact that there really is so much technology and the fact that it's changing so quickly. In fact, a recent study from Oracle Food and Beverage found that 62% of operators doubt they'll be able to keep up with technology. And another 59% worry that tech-savvy disruptors may render them pretty much obsolete. And it's not really always for lack of interest. Nearly 2 in 10 said that their companies are not investing fast enough in technology. At the same time, these operators admit that they do see the value in the right tech. 84% said labor costs are down due to guest-facing mobile technology, and about the same said that their branded apps have really cut service time and boosted throughput. More importantly, according to the study, 93% are convinced that tech capabilities really have favorably impacted their guests, and it's driving repeat traffic. That said, we also know that the restaurant industry is lagging, not leading, in its adoption of technology. And many operators really are reactive when it comes to adding new technologies. They're adapting to the times versus really anticipating the shifts and tech trends. So then we have to ask, what is it that customers actually want today? Believe it or not, when you look at the different generations, millennials, not Gen Z, are the most interested in tech-related offerings. So at the current time, online ordering, both via mobile as well as computer, is really of keen interest. But they're also interested in what's next, according to Technomic data. More than a quarter of Gen Zers, for example, are interested in facial recognition kiosks that recall favorite orders, as well as voice ordering via home device. Even more millennials say the same. And they're also interested in that really personal connection that can be enabled via technology. Nearly half of millennials are interested in systems that register their favorite orders for easy reordering. And that's just really the consumer-facing technology, much of which is pretty well known and out there today. For example, I could very easily say, Alexa, order me a Domino's pizza, and no one would be surprised kind of at what happened. But there are also a lot of back-of-house and other operational technologies that consumers never even see. Partech released a study that shows this huge range of trends that will impact and continue to impact the development within the restaurant tech space. It's trends like data, integration, and API openness, e-commerce, and a bunch more. So our goal today is we really want you to challenge yourself to view technology and innovation as exciting, as something that can really elevate your brand. You'll hear about AI, robotics, voice technology, and a bunch more. They're all technologies that a lot of people think are super futuristic, but they're not. These are technologies already in place in restaurants, and they're becoming more and more accessible. So the goal for today's session is not just to share what the restaurant of the future will look like, but also to address how to pick the right tech for you and your business. So with that, I'd like to invite, from Seven Rooms, the co-founder and chief product officer, Allison Page, up to the stage.
Thanks, Sarah.
There you go.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm so excited to be here this morning to give you the inside look at what the future of restaurant technology looks like. If you're not familiar with Seven Rooms, we're an operations, marketing, and guest engagement platform for the hospitality industry. Today, we work with thousands of brands in over 250 cities worldwide, and we help operators to collect valuable data about their guests and then leverage that data to personalize the entire guest journey. Now, before we could talk about the future, let's start by talking about how we got here. Let's take a page from Darwin's book and talk about the evolution of guest data in our industry. It should come as no surprise to anyone here that the most common tool that we use to track guest data was our brain. We use memories to catalog important guest details night after night and put faces to names night after night. Eventually, we graduated to putting these memories onto paper and taking pages and pages of guest notes so that those details could be shared with others. And as technology started moving into the industry, we started transferring all those notes into systems and spreadsheets, lots of systems and spreadsheets actually, which was certainly a step up from the notebook, but it created a new challenge. And that challenge was that none of these systems were integrated, none of these systems talked to each other, and most importantly, none of these systems served up data to the operator at the times that they needed it the most. So that's where Seven Rooms came in. We saw an opportunity to be that connective tissue between all of this great data that operators had available to them. Let me show you an example of how we do that. Take a look at the Seven Rooms guest profile. We're tracking hundreds of data points, including historical spend, historical visit count, and then we're using that information to intelligently apply tags to the guest profile so that a high-value guest or a regular can be recognized the instant they walk into the restaurant. We're also tracking all of the historical visit information, like where that guest sat on their previous visit, who their server was, how much they spent, and every single menu item that they've ordered in the past. Not just at your location, but at all of your sister properties as well. And on top of that, we're also collecting and aggregating all of the online public review data. So you can read a Google review that a guest left on their previous visit before they even walk through the door. So here we are today, and operators have access to the right data at their fingertips, but there's still a challenge. And that challenge is, in order to access this information, we're relying on screens. We're looking down at tablets, at smartphones, at watches. And every moment we spend looking down is a moment that we're missing out on that very thing that makes hospitality so special, that human connection. So how do we change that? How do we move this industry forward? At 7 Rooms, we're obsessed with the question of how do we build technology that doesn't get in the way of the operator and the guest? How do we build technology that's invisible to the guest? Well, me and my girl Alexa are going to show you. So you'll notice here that I just put on a pair of glasses, but these just aren't ordinary glasses. They're much cooler than that. They're actually Alexa-enabled smart focals. And what that means is I can talk to Alexa, and not only can I hear her response in my ear, but I can also see information on my lens without ever taking my eye off the dining room or the guest. Now, I don't normally walk around holding a smartphone, but for the purposes of this demo, I'm using a companion app, so you're going to be able to see exactly what I see in my lens up here on the screen behind me. So here, give me a wave in the front row so you know I'm not making this up. All right, cool. So let's pretend that the stage was transformed into my restaurant. It's Friday night, it's in the middle of service, it's so busy. I'm the general manager, and it's my 2nd week on the job. And I'm running around like a complete nut job, and I want to get a pulse on what's going on. Alexa, how are we doing tonight?
Revenue is at $24,770 with 585 covers, up 22% from this day last year.
So now what happened there was pretty cool, right? Not only was I able to hear what is our revenue at, how many covers are we at, and pretty good for my 2nd week on the job, I'm up 22%, but I'm also able to see that information on my lens just like you're able to see it behind me. So just when, I'm feeling at the top of my game and things seem to be going well, disaster ensues. Alexa, who's on table 7?
That's Alex Snow, who is a VIP and friend of Chef. She has 15 visits and $4,050 in total spend. Today is her anniversary.
I better get over there. Alexa, send a comp champagne to table 7.
Comp champagne for table 7 requested.
Good evening, Ms. Snow. I just wanted to come over and apologize for the little service snafu here. I also wanted to introduce myself. I'm the new general manager here. Please reach out to me. I would love to take care of this dry cleaning for you.
Thank you so much. We actually just moved around the corner, and this is one of our favorite restaurants. I'll make sure I send you the dry cleaning bill. Thank you.
Well, welcome to the neighborhood. I hope to see you again soon.
Definitely.
So now, a couple things happened there. One, Alexa did me a solid and gave me some information about that guest that I was armed with before I walked over there. But something else happened. In that moment of service recovery and that conversation with the guest, I actually learned something about Miss Snow that I didn't know before. She just moved into the neighborhood. She's a local, and that's powerful information. The great thing about having these Alexa-enabled devices is it's not only powerful for receiving information, but also for pushing information back into the guest database. Check it out. Alexa, add a local tag to table 7.
Local tag added to table 7.
So why does this matter? Why is it important? Well, because when we learn these little nuggets of information and we're able to store them on the guest profile, we can then use that information to personalize not only the service experience, but our marketing efforts to get that guest to come back. So I'm going to show you an example of how we're going to use that local tag to kick off an automated and personalized email marketing campaign to get Ms. Snow back in the door. Roll the video. Now, you might not all be ready for voice in the dining room today, but regardless of where you are in this guest data evolution, the thing you need to be asking yourself is, what is it that you can do tomorrow to be collecting more data about your guests so you can personalize that experience? And you might find, I bet you might find, the irony in it all is that technology, the very thing that we're so afraid of sitting between us and the guest, might be the very thing that actually brings us closer together. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Allison. That was really cool. And I have to wonder if that will work on my prescription glasses as well, because man, that would be nice, no contacts, and you get to see what's going on with your guests. So next up, we're hearing from one of the top tech operators. I would like to welcome to the stage from Domino's, our VP of Global E-commerce and Digital Marketing, Christopher Thomas Moore.
Good morning. How's everybody doing? Come on, guys, gotta give me some energy. Good morning. How's everybody doing? Good. All right. So my name is Christopher Thomas Moore, better known as CTM. I'm the Vice President of Global E-commerce and Digital Marketing for Domino's, and I'm super excited to be here with you guys today to walk you guys through the life at Domino's as it relates to technology. So specifically today, I'll be talking about the life of technology at Domino's, but also our Points for Pies campaign. How many of you saw our Points for Pies campaign on TV? Okay, I see some hands out there. So just to break it down for those that did not see the program, and so Domino's committed during our launch during Super Bowl that we would give out over 100 million rewards points to individuals that scanned pizzas. And yes, those pizzas did not have to be pizzas from Domino's. So that's a pretty ballsy statement to make, right? So let me walk you through the spot and then we'll talk a little bit more about it.
At Domino's, we love pizza as much as you do. That's why we're giving you Piece of the Pie rewards points for eating any pizza from anywhere.
Pizza from here?
Yep,
How about from here?
that's right.
Homemade pizza?
I guess.
Homemade pizza.
That's a little better.
What about anchovy?
Any toppings,
New York style. Deep dish.
any pizza.
What?
Download the Domino's app, scan your pizza, and you could earn 10 Piece of the Pie rewards points toward free Domino's pizza.
Perfect. So you saw in that we were basically using our apps, our iOS and Android apps, to scan real pizza and identify that pizza, and then based off of the appearance of pizza, reward people 10 of our Piece of the Pie rewards points. So to do that, we leveraged an extensive AI and machine learning technology and model that we built in-house to be able to really recognize pizza. Now to get there though, it didn't happen overnight. This was our 2019 campaign that launched during Super Bowl. But the first point that I want to make to you guys is that digital transformation is a journey. It doesn't happen overnight. To really understand how we got to Points for Pies, you really have to go a little bit back in history. And so even going back a year ago to 2018 when we launched Hotspots, which provided the ability and accessibility to pizza in places that we never delivered before. So getting pizza in a park, getting pizza at a beach, you could get pizza anywhere leveraging our Hotspots technology. But to know how we got to the point where we were able to launch Points for Pies, you have to even go further back than that. So going back to the launch in 2017 of our autonomous vehicles, this is the next frontier for our industry. And so we've been one of the trailblazers in understanding how this technology works and how it applies to the delivery experience. But to really understand how we got to Points for Pies, you still have to go further back. And so in 2016, we launched Anywhere. And so Anywhere provided the ability for you to order a pizza in ways that you never had the ability to do before. So using Google Home, leveraging your smartwatch, or even texting a pizza via text to Domino's was the ability to leverage your easy order for the purchase of a pizza in your favorite orders. But again, to understand how we got to Points for Pies, still got to go further back. And so 2015, we launched what's called our DXP vehicles, which was a vehicle specifically designated and designed for the delivery of pizza. It has a warmer in the back, has special compartments for drinks and sides, but still, that does not tell the story of how we got to Points for Pies. You have to go even further back. And so really 2010 was a really important milestone for our brand. In 2010, many of you might remember that was the launch of our New and Inspired campaign, when Domino's came out, made an entire TV ad, and said, "Our pizza sucks." And we acknowledged it and understood that based off of the feedback from our consumers, we were not hitting the mark and we needed to update. And so I'm going to show you a little video that walks you through that process and how we got there, and then we'll jump back into it.
In 2010, after serving the same pizza for 50 years, Domino's decided it was time for a change. But a brand new pizza can't be sold with the same old advertising. The work had to address the elephant in the room, that everyone thought Domino's pizza tasted like, well, how about we let them tell you?
Domino's tastes low quality and forgettable.
Domino's pizza crust to me is like cardboard.
Instead of hiding the hate,
Totally void of flavor.
they embraced it.
There comes a time when you know you've got to make a change. You've got to move forward.
This is what's driving us. This is what's making us want to get better.
So we let the entire story unfold online in a 5-minute documentary. The campaign generated a lot of conversation, and the new pizza is shaping up to be one of the most successful product launches in Domino's 50-year history.
May God bless America, and may God bless Domino's new pizza recipe.
So that New and Inspired campaign was so important to the brand. It really drove us into the point of being a true consumer-centric brand, in that our customer sits in the middle in all of our decisions, from a marketing standpoint, from a product standpoint, from a technology standpoint, are driven by our customer. But to understand Points for Pies, you actually have to go a little further than that. And so you have to go back to 2008 when we launched the Domino's Tracker, which was the first time that anyone really understood what the heck was happening when someone was making a pizza, right? You got to see the inside of the actual, if it was in the oven, if it was picked up, et cetera. People ask me all the time if this is real, and it actually is, and it works. And, but the Tracker was really where we started our digital innovation practice. And then New Inspired that followed the next year was when we combined that with the consumer-centric approach. Which brings me to my next point, which is that consumer-centric cultures win. Ensuring that your consumer is at the center of everything you're doing from a technology standpoint, from a marketing standpoint, is where you're going to find success. And so to do this as a brand, we look at these tensions. And so we look at tensions on 3 spectrums. So we look at tensions from the consumer. What are the tensions that they have in their life? We look at tensions in our culture and in society. What is driving the tensions that exist? And finally, we look at our category and what's going on in our category. So to understand Points for Pies, the first is our cultural insight, which is the fact that at the time we launched this year during Super Bowl, we're kind of divided country, right? We're going through some issues right now. And so there was a very much of a partisan divide in the country. And the consumer sentiment against that divide was that they were tired of all this hatred and division. And what we know about the category is that there's a lot of pizza out there. There are a lot of options for people to order from. And so there in the center of that overlap is where we built Points for Pies, because it fit with the DNA of our brand in that we know that nobody loves pizza more than Domino's. And so now I'm going to walk you through the overall experience for Points for Pies to show you what the consumers experienced as they went through the process. So first, you go to our app, you see the banners, you go into the experience, and first we onboard those users through an onboarding process that explains how we're divvying out the points, the frequency in which you can get points, and all of that legal jargon. Then you go through a 2-factor and a CAPTCHA process to make sure you're not a robot. Everyone liked those Google CAPTCHAs, the funnest thing ever, right? How many stoplights do I have to click? And then after that, then we have the Pie-identifier, which is real life looking at your camera and looking for the occasion of pizza. And the moment that it finds pizza, we provide that success message to say that pizza was found, and you immediately then are awarded 10 pieces of pie reward points that you could use towards the purchase of a pizza in the future. After that, we ask a series of questions, and these questions are helped to refine and train the model so that we understand what the ingredients look like and all the other components that make up your pizza, so that in the future, this platform is even stronger than it is now. And then after that, you're done, and you have your points awarded. So now I'm sure everybody wants to know exactly how we did it, right? All the technology in the background, all our technologists in here will love this. So I'm going to give you the inside scoop. I don't know what's happening here. Which brings me to my next point. No, I'm not losing my job today. I'm not at the restaurant show. So I can't give you all the details on how we did it, but I can tell you that this was an extensive 6-month project that took a ton of resources within our organization to figure out how we would even put this together. And so what we did is use a TensorFlow model in our iOS and Android apps that had very low bandwidth. So that way it didn't interact with the actual purchase process. But then to train this model, it took thousands of photos. So our marketing organization, our technology departments, all got together and found a lot of different pictures of pizza. Why did we need all these pizzas to help train and refine the model? Is because pizza is this. Pizza is also this, breakfast pizza. Pizza is also this arugula heavy pizza. Somebody considers this pizza too. And some child somewhere considers this pizza as well. But for this model, we also had to acknowledge that this too is pizza. So our model actually had the ability to take pizzas that were not real pizzas and apply 10 points to those individuals. Unfortunately, if you haven't got your points, our campaign ended yesterday, but otherwise I would tell you to go scan. But overall, this campaign was a huge success for the business. As a result of this campaign, our app downloads were up, loyalty enrollments were up, and social sentiment for the brand were up. We received over 1 billion media impressions very quickly after the launch of the campaign. Everything from CNBC to CNN, just all over the place, you were seeing Points for Pies. But the next point that I really want you to understand is that you really need to embrace emerging technologies. Why? Because these emerging technologies need to be cultivated to fit your organization. Becoming an early adopter provides the ability to refine, to understand, and then apply in a meaningful way to your business. So start playing with these technologies, understand how they benefit your brand earlier than later so that way you're not left behind. And so all of this brought us to the real key tenets of our brand and our philosophy from innovation and just kind of our brand philosophy. First is that you really have to embrace the revolution, be part of the revolution, be an active player. Next is uncommon honesty. Us coming out and saying our pizza sucked was uncommon honesty. You don't hear that often, but that is a very meaningful dialogue with our consumers. Next is that you have to define your why. Why are you doing this? Technology for technology's sake is never a beneficial win for the organization. Define what you're doing. Take bold actions. Be comfortable stepping out there and figuring things out. Test and learn into those things. And challenge everything. Nothing, I'm sure we've all been in conversations where they've sold us something and we get it and it never works the way that we thought it would. And that's why you have to challenge and ask the right questions to really get at the heart of things. Be ready for innovation. It's gonna come, it's either gonna leave you or you're gonna be part of that story. And also, when we talked about the New and Inspired campaign, you saw that campaign, we used technology to tell the story. But now for Domino's, technology is the story, just like Points for Pies. And so technology and innovation is advertising. And the last point I'm gonna leave with you, this is true for us as marketers and as operators and as individuals within this industry, but we are all a work in progress, as are our brands and the organizations that we represent. So know that, again, as we said earlier, this is a process that doesn't happen overnight. Hold true to your philosophies and your beliefs, and be comfortable learning and growing and iterating on all the great things that you're working on. So with that, I say thank you. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you so much for that. And something I'm really excited that we just talked about was the idea of being customer-centric. So often at restaurant business, when we ask different operators about why they're adding tech or suppliers about how they're pitching their technology, the idea of the customer doesn't actually ever come up, which obviously is key and so centric to what we should be talking about when it comes to technology. And speaking of even more technology, it's time to delve into the fun world of robotics. So please welcome from MISO Robotics, COO Melissa Burkhart.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm so happy to be here representing MISO Robotics with all of you guys. At MISO Robotics, we are building an autonomous cooking platform. And why are we doing this? To empower chefs to unlock their culinary creativity at scale. So who here in the room has heard of FLIPPY or has seen FLIPPY here at the show? Anyone? Yeah. So FLIPPY is our first product, and FLIPPY is the world's first autonomous kitchen assistant. And so far, FLIPPY can grill and FLIPPY can fry. FLIPPY's been grilling burgers at Cali Burger Restaurant in Pasadena since last year. It's grilled about 15,000 patties. And FLIPPY's also then been frying at Dodger Stadium since last summer. And that was through a partnership with Compass Group, specifically with Levy, the division of Compass that focuses on sports and entertainment hospitality. And at Dodger Stadium, FLIPPY has fried over 31,000 pounds of chicken and potato products. So here at this show, you can see FLIPPY in its latest packaging and its latest form factor, the mobile kitchen assistant. And let's show you a video of FLIPPY showing his moves at our booth. So as you can see, FLIPPY can pick up baskets, put them in the fryer, shake them to agitate the food and keep it from, clumping up when it's cooking. Lift the basket up to let the oil drip off, and then, move the basket over so that the food can be packaged up to be served. In the booth, we just have one fryer here to show you an example, but in a kitchen, FLIPPY's frying with 4 fryers, 8 baskets going at the same time. And you can see that this mobile kitchen assistant, it's an appliance form factor already. So it's on wheels, it can just roll up to your line, it's NSF certified, ETL certified, it just needs to be plugged into 110 volt. And yeah, you can just push it out of the way when you need to clean the kitchen, push it back up to the line, you're ready to keep frying. So it's interesting to watch FLIPPY work, but it's more interesting to understand how FLIPPY is able to do the work that it does. And it's breakthroughs in machine learning and artificial intelligence that are allowing computers to be able to see and recognize objects in real time and make increasingly complex decisions in real time that allow us to take robotics and put it into commercial kitchens to allow chefs to take advantage of this automation and to be able to cook food perfectly every time. This is the same technology that's being applied in self-driving cars. And so for the next few minutes, we wanted to give you a chance to go inside what FLIPPY's brain looks like when it's making all these decisions, when it's cooking. So of course, FLIPPY needs to see the food. FLIPPY needs to be able to see the food, the tools, and the equipment that it's cooking with to be able to execute cooking food and cook to your recipe and your SOP. So here's an example of some objects that FLIPPY can see at the grill. And we can train recognition of new products. In about a week, we can get 99.9% accuracy. Now here's an example of FLIPPY recognizing food at the fryer. So the worker just puts down baskets and the cameras look right in, recognize the objects, and you can see that FLIPPY's identified 2 different types of chicken there. And we've trained about 15 different items of food to fry with already. FLIPPY picked up the French fries there, right? How about this? How about being able to recognize items, pizza toppings, as they're being applied to a pizza? This is some work in our lab that we've been doing. So yeah, FLIPPY can see the food, and then FLIPPY also needs to be able to see all of the tools and equipment that it needs to work with. So when you saw those fry baskets, you may have seen something that looked like a little QR code on it, right? So what's that all about? Well, FLIPPY uses those markers to be able to identify exactly where the items are, right? Localizing those items. We know in a kitchen everything is on wheels, things move around, you need to pick up tools, put them down. So FLIPPY uses those markers to be able to see where everything is in real time so it can actually grab them and use the tools that it needs, put baskets in the fryer, et cetera. But already in our lab, we have too many clicks. Already in our lab, we've been able to implement techniques where FLIPPY can see the equipment without needing the markers. So this gray overlay that you see on the fryer is FLIPPY actually seeing where the fryer is. And as you move the camera, you can see how quickly FLIPPY is able to reassess exactly where the fryer is. Now, it's good that FLIPPY can see, but FLIPPY's got to cook, right? So when you're cooking with FLIPPY, you see this FLIPPY TV, and it gives you countdowns to everything that Flippy's going to be doing next, because Flippy's planning out all the activities of what it needs to do and keeping its coworkers informed of everything that's coming up so you know when you need to be ready to receive food, etc. But what's going on behind those countdowns is a simulation that's constantly running in Flippy's brain. So Flippy's running all these different scenarios based on all the information that it's taking in and forward planning everything that it's going to do at every moment. So this is actually 12 minutes of advanced planning that Flippy has created based on being presented with 8 baskets of food that it needs to fry. So it's planning out exactly what it's going to do at each moment. It's actually running a little game in its mind, and the game gives it points for cooking food perfectly, for not leaving a basket in too long, for not taking it out too early, for not leaving food sitting out too long before it goes into the fryer. So Flippy's always trying to run this scenario to optimize its points, and as new information come in, it can reassess the plan in real time and change the plan. So then Flippy needs to interact with the food to actually cook it. It can see it, it's got a plan, then it's got to actually do the work. So think about the complexity of flipping a burger, right? You got to get right underneath that, perfectly parallel with the grill. You've got to go right underneath the center of mass of the patty so you can flip it perfectly. So no matter where the patties are put down, Flippy can see it, recognize it, localize it, and then when it knows it needs to go flip, it's making real-time decisions about exactly how to go, where to go on the grill to manipulate it. And it does all those calculations in less than a second each time it needs to interact with a piece of food. So you can also see Flippy exercising some food safety practices, like having a different spatula for the cooking side of the patty, as a different one than for the cooked side. And in between uses, it'll wipe down that spatula to keep it nice and smooth and gristle-free for the next flip. And it even gets out the grill cleaner at the end and will wipe down the grill. So here's another example of Flippy working with food. So Flippy's actually picking up pieces of pepperoni and put it into a precision formation on for a pizza, right? And we're actually cutting the pepperoni as we need it. Flippy's cutting it as it goes, and that means the pepperoni is not only fresher, but it's easier to manipulate because you haven't let all those pieces of pepperoni get stuck together and need to be peeled back apart, right? And it looks like Flippy, it may look like Flippy's kind of sucking the pepperoni off that conveyor, but that again wouldn't be a very good food safety practice because you could get food stuck in all these hoses, right? So Flippy's actually blowing air out, creating lift, and flying that piece of pepperoni over and landing it in its perfect spot to make the perfect pizza. So the kitchen assistant is also wrapped in a remote support package. And this is to give operators the confidence that Flippy's always going to keep cooking and no one's ever going to lose the line. So remotely, we can actually manage everything going on with Flippy. We can jump in and resolve issues real time. We can communicate with workers in the kitchen. We can even help train new employees when they come in, all remotely. And then we can push out over-the-air upgrades to Flippy. So anytime there's an improvement that we learn from one system, we can push that out across the whole fleet, or we can push out new applications as we develop them, and then operators can take advantage of them. So let's see how it all comes together for Flippy to fry here. You can see our chef tech is going to be cooking with 2 kitchen assistants, and just look at how productive he is that he's able to work with 16 baskets frying at the same time in order to produce perfectly cooked food. So that's 2 frying assistants, but you could also imagine him working with 1 grilling assistant, 1 frying assistant. So you've seen how Flippy is able to come to put all the parts together to do its work in a kitchen. Now, underneath all of the kitchen assistants is our software platform, our architecture, that's based on our proprietary recipe language, like a coding language for recipes, right? And that works with different configurations of food, skills, and equipment, so that we can manage fleets of kitchen assistants out in all sorts of kitchens, and so that we can scale quickly to create new applications, new ways of cooking, new things that need to be cooked. And that's combined with our hardware platform, which is, arms, conveyors, grippers, hoppers, in order to package up the automation of cooking into the form factor that you need, into the kitchen that you need, into that kitchen of the future, right? Where you're able to cook your recipes your way, leveraging automation, but then you're also able to adapt and change as consumer tastes and trends evolve, and that automation is able to cook with different items, cook to your recipe as your recipe changes, introduce new menu items. And it all comes together in this kitchen form factor that works for you whether you're trying to cook for diners when they come into your restaurant to eat, whether you want to cook for them where they want to pick up food conveniently on the way home, or whether you want to cook for them close to their home so that food can be delivered to their doorstep. So the kitchen of the future for us is one where the chef's vision is able to come to reality all the time, and where it's as easy to scale your recipe as uploading your menus and your recipe, and then you can scale your restaurant brand from there. Thank you guys very much. Appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much. That was so interesting. Robotics are doing so much in the restaurant industry. And with that, I'd really like to welcome back all of the rest of our panelists, and we're going to talk a little bit more about technology. Before we dive in, if anyone has any questions for our panelists, feel free to submit it. Oh, I did say something during the intro about ordering via Alexa, didn't I?
It worked.
Yes. Thank you. I mean, I ordered via Alexa, but I guess I have a little cash. Thank you. Should we save it for after? That's our reward.
Let's do that.
All right. Well, before we jump into talking, pizza and what we're going to eat, if anyone has any questions for our panelists, feel free to submit them via the conference app. We wanted to show that we too are into tech, and so we won't have microphones around. We want to submit it digitally. So, for our panelists, we know technology is changing so fast. What's changed the most, would you say, just within the last year alone?
For me, I think the growth of voice technology is really interesting. I think as voice started to grow, I think there was a question of how that's really going to impact a lot of different industries, how advertisers were going to take advantage of it, and how publishers were going to take advantage of it. But if you look at the trajectory of adoption of voice technology, it's growing at a faster rate than any other prior technology. And so I think that you're seeing brands start to integrate those technologies in new ways that alleviate friction that exists, leveraging those voice technologies to address service concerns and other aspects of the overall operation of the business. And so I think within the last 12 months, you've started to see that continue to grow.
In addition to the pizza order?
Yeah, ordering on Alexa for a pizza, that works too.
And I would just add to that, not just voice, but any technology really. Operators in the last year, it seems like, are hungry for new technology. I've been coming to NRA for a few years now, and I can't tell you the buzz and the excitement that I feel around restaurant tech right now. It's really exciting. And so I think with all the changes happening in the industry, everyone's looking to figure out, how can I use automation? How can I use technology to, help protect my margins, to help grow revenue? So I think in general, I've seen a big shift from a year ago in just, more operators looking for it and being ready for it.
Yeah, we've been at this for 3 years, working on automation for kitchens. And we've seen a huge change. I mean, all the big operators are embracing automation and this new wave of automation that's really dynamic, adaptable automation. So, for instance, Compass Group that we're working with, stay tuned. They're have contracted to roll out the next batch of systems. They're embracing AI, but also, look, McDonald's bought Dynamic Yield, right? Sweetgreen hired a head of automation. Chick-fil-A's been posting about using AI for managing hold times. So you're seeing a lot of progress and a lot of embracing of AI and automation.
So with the progress that's happening and the embracing of pretty much all the different technologies, what do you expect to change the most soon?
I think that what's going to change the most soon is, I really think that how organizations are leveraging technology is going to change. Like one example that I think is really interesting, if you look at the great work that Burger King has done against augmented reality. And so augmented reality really started as kind of more entertainment kind of than it was used for operational practices or marketing practices. But now seeing how they're doing conquesting activities, leveraging this technology, has been really interesting. So I think a lot of operators are going to find technologies that are not necessarily explicitly applicable for their business and figure out, since consumers are using them, how they apply them to their industry.
Yeah. I mean, augmented reality or, just like these vision systems that we're talking about can be used for quality control.
Yeah.
There are lots of ways that you can implement this artificial intelligence in a way that helps build your base and then introduce automation as you're ready for it.
Absolutely.
So it seems like a lot of operators are a little bit worried about what technology could potentially do to the idea of hospitality. And that's a lot of the feedback we hear is, oh, it's going to mess with, our hospitality, and we're a hospitality business. Right. What do you say to that?
I think like anything else, it's all in what it is and how you use it. There's a difference between a robot flipping burgers and a robot, maitre d' in the front of the house. So I think it's all about understanding what that technology is and how you can use it and apply it to your business in a way that doesn't get in between you and the guest.
Yeah, the tenets of hospitality, it's the friendly environment, the freshest food, the tastiest food, being able to hit the throughput that you need with the consistency, personalizing. Those tenets are still going to be the same, and operators are just saying how can I leverage technology to still improve that diner experience? So the hospitality effect will always be
And I think technology provides the ability to shift individuals where it's more meaningful, right? So that you could have those high-touch experiences and let some of this tech and automation do some of the areas that are more kind of planned and structured. So that you could, it's about reallocating resources, I think, is what we're going to find from all the technology that's coming in our industry.
So then let's go into that. Let's address kind of the elephant in the room of technology could potentially take away human jobs. Do you think that's the case? Do you think it'll just look totally different? What does a job in the restaurant look like in the future?
Well, we already know that turnover is a huge challenge for all operators, right? It's a minimum 150%. Some operators are saying 400%. People are saying I have to hire someone new every 45 days. There's a permanent help wanted sign outside the restaurant. And what's interesting is that it's the demand for prepared food that's growing significantly across the world. People aren't getting more time. They are wanting prepared food, even if they want to go in. They may not want to sit down all the time, but they want prepared food. So the market for prepared food is huge and growing. And if you look at trends within the next couple of years, we're actually going to have a shortfall of 12 million hands needed to cook food. So operators are going to need the help in order to just keep up with what the consumer is asking for.
And I think reallocating the resources is really the right way to think about it. If you can save money in one role, maybe that's an additional role that you couldn't have hired before that you can now bring onto the team. Maybe that's extra dollars that can be invested in your other employees or in the ingredients that you're sourcing or into the guest.
So do you anticipate more new roles kind of in the restaurant space in general? I know Domino's has a huge tech team. Would you anticipate that more restaurants are going to add even more technologists, data scientists, kind of everything?
I would say yes, because that's the wave of the future, and that's where our consumers are going. It's into technology. And so at Domino's, actually our largest individual organization is our technology group, which has hundreds of developers in that group. And then our second fastest growing group is actually our strategy and insights group that's leveraging all of this great data that we're getting to understand how we apply it to the business. And so I do feel like a lot of brands will continue to invest more heavily in technology to find those efficiencies and find those opportunities where that reallocation of technology could be really big wins for the brand and drive some profitability that wasn't there before.
How much do those strategy teams work with the tech teams?
It's very much aligned. And so the organizational structure that we have at Domino's, it really fosters that collaborative spirit. So on every level of the organization, there's a pairing that happens. So my director of loyalty has an IT counterpart that also has a strategy counterpart. And all of them share the same goals and objectives as an organization. So they all work together, and so there's not that conflicting interest that sometimes exists between technologists and marketers. So that really forces that growth of all three of those areas.
Yeah, I mean, you're in a luxury position being in a really big brand, and we would expect those big brands to have these big tech teams, but in no way are we expecting all restaurateurs to become experts in technology. Right. There's a class of these sort of 100 location type restaurant operations where they can hire head of automation and work with other people, but really the technology has to come together in platforms that are accessible, that are full stack, that deliver on improving hospitality, all those different dimensions of hospitality that all the different restaurants can take advantage of, right? And like, you know, we see a world where you're able to scale your restaurant just because you're able to upload your recipe, upload your menu, and there's infrastructure there that, you know, you can capitalize on. There's going to be a big shift in how we distribute food in the next 20 years.
And are you seeing, you know, with some of those smaller 100 or fewer unit brands, information sharing between the brands at all?
A little bit. I mean, I think that people are, you know, like techies like to always exchange ideas, so you're always going to have a little bit of that. And there are also people passing around from different places to another. Mostly, like, we've just been overwhelmed. I mean, it shouldn't be surprising, but we're technologists, so it's new being in hospitality business for us, but just how open everyone has been in bringing us into their kitchens, right? And being able to have good conversations about what is it that they want to do with technology, with automation, et cetera. So I think there is a lot of information that's being shared, you know, across the board, and, you know, we've been able to see that ourselves.
That's really great. So we know there's a boatload of technology. I think that's the best way to describe it, a boatload of technology. And it's changing constantly. I'm pretty sure something new was rolled out while we were up here. Like, it's so fast. And that presents such huge challenges. But what do you think is the biggest challenge for operators today, trying to add technology?
I think the biggest challenge is cutting through all the noise. Like you said, there is so much out there. And I think, you know, if you're here, you're at NRA, you're doing your research, you're doing your homework, the best thing you can do to cut through the noise is get out there and start talking to people, talk to your peers, figure out what their pain points are and what they're doing to find solutions, and then roll your sleeves up and test it and see if it works for your operation.
Yeah, I think the key is really testing. Like you said, I feel like testing is so important in this iterative learning process across the business, specifically when it comes to technology, to find how you mold those technologies into really beneficial wins for the business. And so I would say to any organization, regardless size, that having a testing platform and a process for evaluating the success of the implementation of new technology is so important. How are you evaluating success? What are those criteria? And making sure that you have the data that provides those insights so that you understand if it's meaningful or not.
Right. Making sure you're measuring things that are trickle all the way down to the impact to the customer. Right.
Full path.
Right.
So before you even get to the testing, how do you cut through the clutter of selection? Yes.
It's hard. I get hundreds of emails every day about, you know, everything is the best thing ever. And so I think getting that peer insight, having individuals that you can go to understand how they're leveraging these technologies, but it's really hard. I don't think that there's an easy answer for how brands and organizations understand all the technology that's out there and how it applies to their business. But I think small cuts against this, leveraging your resources, is the best way to approach it.
And operators should also, you know, feel free to push on technology companies to work with each other, right? And so, you know, if you're seeing different things come together that if they were collaborating would give you a better solution, be a connector to and help connect the dots in the ecosystem so we can get to these full stack solutions faster.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So then what are some of the first things that either as technologists you're hearing from operators, some of those initial questions, or as an operator you're asking if, you know, they have managed to cut through that clutter of email pitches?
I think the most important question for an operator to a vendor is quite simple. It's what's the ROI? If you're asking me to make this investment in this platform, show me how I'm going to make money off this. And you know, a lot of times out there I see a lot of tech products that are free or free 99, and what I immediately think of when I see that is they can't prove the value of their platform. So you really have to be diligent about figuring out if you are going to spend those dollars and you're going to put the time and effort into changing your operation and adopting a new solution, really understand where the value is going to come from.
Yeah, and I think, and then just in addition on that, I think we take a level to incrementality. So how incremental is this? Because I think a lot of organizations will pitch ROI, but that's top line and it assumes some level of volume that already exists anyway. And so getting at the heart of what's truly incremental from these investments is really important. But then also understanding the full impact of these technologies through the full system and the full path. So down from your team members all the way to your consumer, like what are all the touch points that you're impacting and what are the benefits and wins that you're getting out of each one of those touch points?
Oh, go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead. Sorry. No, I mean, if you're coming with an automation frame of mind, it's really thinking about what is the workflow that you need? What is your optimal workflow? Because when we come in, we're not just trying to say, here's this kitchen assistant, like put it in, right? We're really trying to optimize the workflow with the operator. And so thinking about the tech in a way that is actually going to make the most seamless operation for you is really important.
Yeah.
And do you think there's anything that operators would hear that makes you kind of click the phone and say, okay, we're done now? Like, definitely not for me. Is there any one thing minus no ROI?
Perhaps not being able to own your data, not being able to own your brand, not being able to own your guest relationship. Those are all really important things to think about especially when you're looking at guest-facing technology.
We hear a lot of talk about data and data ownership, and it seems like that's still the struggle of, especially when it comes to things like third-party delivery or online ordering. It's whose customer is that, whose data is that? Do you see any kind of shifts already happening in the partnership space, whether it's with that data ownership or cost considerations or anything like that?
I mean, I think it's becoming more challenging and complicated than ever before. So with the continued growth of food aggregators, with the changing in the publisher space, so tracking of cookie pixels and things like that, those are going away as well. So the access to data at key touch points in your overall consumer journey is becoming more challenging. And so I do think that every brand should make a strong stance on the ownership of your data. For Domino's, I know that that's really how we've been able to get to where we are, because we have a wealth of data that we're tracking against our users, and we use that in practice in developing new technologies and initiatives that speak to the data and insights that we're gaining. And so the loss of that could completely hinder the success of your campaigns and your objectives. So I would say that you should really put a stake in the ground of making sure that you have full accessibility to all those touch points.
Yeah, and for us, I mean, we recognize that the operator's recipe is their IP, and so we data vault, your specific techniques, and everything is kept separate. And so it is really important to, respect what needs to be proprietary. Yeah.
So for operators who, let's say, aren't as tech savvy or don't have as much technology in their operation right now as they could potentially have, where do you think they should even start looking?
I think here is a good place. Every tech vendor under the sun is here, but I think that you need to really prioritize what your pain points are. And make a list of your top 10 and pick the first one off the list and get out there and find out what solutions exist. I guarantee you there's a solution that exists for your problem. If there's not, give me a call. But you can go out there and you can talk to your peers and you can figure out how they're solving that problem.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the peer sharing is really important. And I know people feel like you're competitive, but at the same time, you might be operating in a different region. Find people that you can use as sounding boards for what you're doing to be able to, leverage each other's insights. Yeah.
And it sounds like technologists are more willing to work with each other now. I think you've both kind of said that. Does that make things even more complicated or easier, would you say?
I mean, it's got to make things easier. We're not doing our job, so yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think the industry in general has been in need of connectivity and integrations and partnership for so long, and this whole new wave of startups coming into the space are really coming in with that spirit of partnership and that spirit of wanting to work together to improve the operations. So I think that we're just at the beginning right now, and I'm really excited about where that's going.
But I think for these technologists, it's really important for you to identify the simplicity of your integration and connections with other technology. Operators, they're trying to run their business. They're trying to focus on, getting food out the door and providing great service. And what technology should not do is be a hindrance to that process, right? And so I think any time that a technology can provide flexibility and simplicity in the full stack, I'm super excited.
So one question we just got in is, how will technology impact food delivery beyond pizza? Do you guys want?
Yeah, so when you look at, pizza, one reason that pizza's been so successful in delivery is because it has a long hold time, right? So with technology, you're going to be able to think about where you can cook your food in totally different ways, right? Not necessarily just be tied to your specific building, your specific place where people come, right? And so it's this opening up of infrastructure that's going to allow food to be cooked a lot closer to diners by having form factors where you can, leverage automation, say, in the neighborhood, right? And that's going to allow us to be able to cook food closer to people, and you can open up new segments of food that don't have long hold times.
Yep.
So I feel like the buzzword a few years ago was frictionless. We want everything to be frictionless in the restaurant industry. And technology has kind of been the way to make that happen for a lot. But do you think there's a point at which there's too much frictionless activity in a restaurant?
Yeah, I think consumers are different, right? Customers are different. Some don't want to talk to anyone. They want to get in and out and would prefer to have everything happen in a digital platform. Others really enjoy, those high-touch experiences where they can socialize, they can, meet the people that live in their neighborhood. And so I feel like it's part of the defining the brand and who the brand is and kind of what aspects technology can eliminate friction. That actually goes full circle back to our earlier conversation so that you could redeploy those resources to have more engaged conversations and experiences with those consumers that really would like that in a hospitality setting.
I think just to add to that, there's definitely been this bifurcation in the market between, high touch and convenience. And on the convenience side, I definitely think the buzzword is certainly frictionless, but I think on the high touch side, there's a new buzzword that everyone's talking about, and it's personalization. And if you think about all the industries around us, who is so successful at doing this? You think about Netflix, you think about Spotify, you think about Amazon. Personalization is what drives their business, what drives their consumer experience, and data is the engine that they're using to do it. So I think while frictionless is great, we also have to think about the other half of consumers that want that high-touch experience and that personalized experience.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and kitchen infrastructures have been running on like an analog backbone for so long, right? So they haven't been able to work in the way that Netflix has. But food is content, right? So we should expect that food is going to follow this trend to more and more personalization. And so the more digitized that you are, the easier it is that you're going to be able to take advantage of this. But it's just interesting, you're talking about frictionless on the consumer side, frictionless on the infrastructure side. I mean, we're nowhere near there now, but it's like using the content analogy. Think about, if you saw an awesome movie and then you call me, you're in a different state, and I'm like, oh, well, I'll wait till they build a movie theater near me to be able to see that movie. It might take 7 years, right? I mean, it's crazy the amount of work that goes to scaling up, a brand and having to rebuild infrastructure every single time. Yet at the same time, restaurants are not, kitchens are not fully utilized, right? There's so much remnant space that we can take advantage of, and if we're able to have a platform that's connecting all of that together, then you can take advantage of space and be able to grow in a totally different way.
I think back of the house efficiencies is really the next frontier. I mean, we have an entire department that we've spun up just to focus at that and the retail experience, both at the store as well as at the delivery process, because there's a ton of friction that exists with our employees, right, and with our team members, that if alleviated, wow, what could they do, right? How much more amazing could our experiences be if we can eliminate some of those frictions? So I think you'll start to see much more of a focus on the back of the house efficiencies through this technology, at the same time balancing it with consumer-facing technologies.
So then that said, what does the back of the house of the future actually look like?
Yeah, so the back of house of the future
MISO robots.
leans, I mean, it leans on automation, but in a way where, you're basically using your human capital to put all the special touches. The kitchen assistants are not going to, and even, an automated kitchen is going to be able to do, the sort of 80%, right? And so you can take some of your items and put them into a fully automated opportunity, some menu items, right? And then there's other little touch points that you may need along the way. And so you'll have this integrated cadence and dance with automation and a little bit of human touches to make all those things that make your food special, right?
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
So like for Domino's, we feel like there's real value in the fact that we hand make and hand stretch the dough for our pizzas. That's part of the experience of getting a pizza, and it's part of the love that we put into the pizza. But there are things like ordering an inventory and other things that really could get us, away from a lot of manual processes that keep our team members working on things that are not as important and not as much impacting the consumer. And so I think that going back to that back of the house philosophy, I think it's providing that ability for you to have some more meaningful, nuanced opportunities from how your team members interact with your customers up front.
So then, because there's more opportunity for potential interaction, what does the front of the house of the future look like?
Well, I think you just saw that voice is coming to the front of the house for sure. Maybe not just voice, but anything to make that experience more frictionless, yet more personalized. It's what customers, we talked about what has changed the most in the last year. I think customer expectations are right at the top of that list. So anything that we can use in the dining room to deliver that experience to the guest, I think is going to be really powerful. And I think it's kind of funny how where we started in restaurants was not having technology visible anywhere and not wanting a screen up at the host stand. And it's kind of ironic that that seems to be where we're moving back to, except in perhaps a little bit smarter of a way.
Yeah. So that's front of house in high-end environments, but I mean, front of house is going to be your living room, right? So thinking about the ways that you're really thinking about what is, my front of house is someone wants to eat at their own dining room. How do I think about the infrastructure to get food to them? It's really important.
So we did just get a question about what excites you the most about e-commerce and payments in that kind of space. Let you take that one.
I'm sure that came from a payment provider, but I really am excited about these new payment technologies like the Venmos of the world that provide a payment community, right? Where you can buy a pizza and then split it up with your friends in a really easy way, leveraging pizza emojis. And so I think that there's a lot of opportunities there, and as payments become more frictionless. But it's an interesting space that is constantly growing and changing.
So potentially outside of the e-commerce space, but just in restaurant tech in general, do you think there's anything that you're seeing right now that's probably going to be a fad instead of a lasting trend?
I think staying on the payments note, like Bitcoin in the restaurant, we haven't even figured out pay at the table yet, so I think we're a little bit early for Bitcoin. Not saying cryptocurrency is a fad, but I think that that's one box that we don't yet have to check.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to know. Sometimes is it a fad or something just too early, right? Technology has to work through some cycles to actually take root. But if you think about it, meal kits is something where everyone thought that was going to be the wave and the whole market was going to flip to meal kits, but they've kind of plateaued. And I think the challenge, why is that happen, is because diners really want their life made easy, right? I mean, people want their lives made easy. They want food cooked for them. Getting the meal kit, they still have to do so much of the work that it's like, well, I'll just have food delivered. It's not really saving me time, right? It only has a specific place. So it just keeps going back to the consumer, like you're saying, what am I always doing to make the consumer have a better dining experience, but fit into their lives in the most seamless way as well? Yeah.
Is there any piece of restaurant technology that maybe freaks you out a little bit, that you're like, this maybe shouldn't be here? You can say no.
I don't think it's ever the technology that would freak me out, maybe the way someone's using it. Okay. A lot of times we get that question, you're collecting all of this data about the guest, isn't that a little creepy? And it's just like a restaurant owning this data and having access to this data is no different than Amazon knowing what you purchased last Tuesday and using that to figure out what to sell to you. So, I don't think the actual technology is creepy. I just think it's all about the way you use it, and hospitality operators are better at that than anyone in figuring out the right way to use that technology to enhance the guest experience.
Yeah.
I think a lot of times that freakiness with technology happens at the early stages of most technologies, right? In the hotel I'm staying at, they have robots that deliver towels, and I was like, what the hell is this? And it threw me off at first, right? But it's really the future of the hospitality and hotel industry is leveraging automation and robotics to find efficiencies as well in their business. And so I think early adopters will find that there are those frictions that exist when they're implementing new technology. But as comfort grows and as use grows with these technologies, I think they start to level out and kind of hit that adoption curve that we're all used to.
Yeah. I mean, for back of house, it's just making sure that all food safety is always respected, food safety and employee safety. So, if an operator, you need to be asking the technology partner you're working with about how important they see food safety. It's paramount, right? And if they can't talk through everything that they take into their systems to accommodate that, then, that'd be a problem.
So it looks like we just have time for one more question. So as 3 people who are very deeply entrenched in the restaurant tech space, what excites you the most?
I'd say just where we're at right now, there's so much opportunity out there to innovate compared to other industries. I feel like we're in infant form. So there's just endless things for us to work on and us to be curious about. And I do feel like the industry really is in early innings and we're about to go through this evolution. And I'm really excited to be a part of that.
Yeah, I mean, it's the beginning of a 20-year cycle in how technology can come in and really change how we do things in kitchens. Being able to see this dynamic, adaptable automation really come to its full force is clearly where my mind is at and what I think has great potential.
I mean, I'm super excited. I mean, it's such a fun time to be in the space that we're in. Things are changing constantly, and there's some really cool and exciting things happening. And so finding out and going through the process of learning about these new technologies and what works and what doesn't work for our brands, I think is an exciting undertaking. I am excited about now that technology is focusing on simplicity of implementation and use. And so the accessibility and the ability to implement these technologies is becoming easier as we go further. And so there's just a lot that's happening, which makes it stressful, complicated, but also extremely exciting.
Great. Well, thank you guys for being here today. We really appreciate it. And I hope everyone here will join us for this afternoon's session, Winning at Restaurant Business. Thank you.